I'm Mark Gore. I've been a governor Blue Coat, a director at the Trust for about 5 years, and this year I'm chair of the board of directors. Well, I was born in Lancashire but brought up in Sheffield. After university and teacher training, I taught for a short while French in state schools in Essex and then in Hertfordshire. Having decided that wasn't quite the role for me, I became an education officer, firstly in Hertfordshire and then in Warwickshire. I've had a number of responsibilities in those two local authorities. I looked after travel education, early years, ethnic minority services, a whole range of things. My final role in Warwickshire was as the head of education responsible for all the 250 schools in Warwickshire. Whilst I was working in Warwickshire, I was also governor and then chair of governors of an independent school for the profoundly deaf, which was an interesting and enlightening experience. The real work of the Trust is done by Lois, the Chief Executive, and her team in supporting our schools and of course our brilliant head teachers, staff, support staff in our schools. So the role of the directors is not to do that work but to have oversight of it, to help and support the director and the senior teams, and also to challenge, and that's an important part of our role. I suppose there are some key responsibilities which the government require of directors. One of those is to ensure that our children are safe. Safeguarding is a major responsibility of the directors. The quality of the education in our schools is clearly our core purpose. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we have to ensure that we're making the best use of the resources that we have, the money that we have, to ensure the best education for the children in our schools. So finance is a major responsibility for the board of directors. Well, firstly, I think the directors have a responsibility to upskill themselves. So there's quite a lot of homework to do in terms of a lot of reading, government papers, guidance from the government as to the role and what our role is and what we should be doing and how the system works. So that's an important first step, I think, for directors. The second, and I suppose the most formal part, is that we meet as a board with a number of subcommittees looking at particular aspects of our responsibilities. And we hear reports from the Chief Executive and her senior team very often about things that we need to be concerned about, whether that's buildings or standards or whatever that is. And that's a very important part of our role. The third thing that we do, which I think is really important, is that we seek, as far as we can, to visit our schools. That gives us an opportunity to see what's going on, to see nearly always the very good work that's going on, but also then to check out and verify what we've been told by the senior team in the Trust, and to check out, well, what we're being told, does that match with what we're seeing in the schools? So that's one of the things that actually is one of the most enjoyable parts of the job, is to go around and visit our schools, talk to head teachers, talk to governors if they're in the school. So if you do see a director in the school, then do take the opportunity to talk to them, to give them your views, to ask them questions. I think all of the directors would welcome that kind of approach. Well, there are challenges which face Inspire, which I think face all our schools across the piece. I think our provision for children with SEND, special educational needs and disabilities, is crucial to our work and a significant challenge. Not least because, as I think everyone understands, we are in a difficult financial position, and that puts enormous stress on the system and on the teachers who work in our schools. So that's one of our challenges, but related to that is a challenge about the workload and the pressure on our staff in schools, required to do an enormous amount of work. And our job is to support them as best we can and to make sure we don't make any unreasonable demands on them that don't need to be made, so that they can focus on their key work of supporting children in our schools. I think the first and most important thing is that as a volunteer, it's a huge privilege to work with such excellent colleagues, both in the central team, the executive team, and also in our schools. our head teachers, our staff and our staff right across the piece in our schools. There are so many good people, and it's an absolute privilege to meet them, talk to them and see the good work they do. Secondly, it is a huge pleasure to visit schools and to see children enjoying their education, learning well, progressing well. That's a huge privilege too, and makes the job very worthwhile. And I suppose thirdly, and again as a volunteer, it's a pleasure to be able to try and make a difference, to try and contribute to the system and make things work for children and young people as best we can.